What's the most hurtful thing someone has ever said to you?
Experience 1. When I was younger, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. My siblings and I shaved our heads to support her. This kid told me that he hopes my mom dies and that I look like I was in the Holocaust. She has been cancer-free for 13 years, but screw that kid. Experience 2.
You are nice, but damn, I have rarely seen someone as ugly as you.
For context, teenagers summer camp, I was 17. This guy was supposed to be someone I was getting along with quite well, the whole group, but we were a few being always together. I was seated chatting with the whole group, and he came to say that randomly. I wasn't even interacting with him. Like, he said my name so he could have my attention. It's like he needed to say it in front of everyone and he didn't feel like he was saying something wrong. What was weird is that he wasn't even laughing. It's not like someone or some people were trying to make fun of me. It was so harsh that people were speechless. No one laughed. At all. I think they were as much confused as I was. I appreciate no one jumped on that after those WTF 20 seconds, they all went like nothing happened. I am 35 and still remember this. Knowing how teenagers can be cruel, I hate this had a huge impact on me, but I remember people really tried to not make it a big deal. The group didn't fall into that crap, and they were between 15 to 17 years old. I think someone even said to the guy,
Are you being serious right now?
but I am not sure. I was really trying to swallow the humiliation. Edit, I posted yesterday my night here just because I felt like to and was not waiting for any answers at all. I woke up and saw your comments and was again confused as to why so many people paid attention to my post. Thanks for your support. I feel fine today and I know I am cute and most of all nice, funny, loyal, and people want to be around me. But your biggest weakness being exposed in front of a group when you are 17, I think is something you never forget. Don't hesitate to share your story. I read all the comments. Experience 3.
You'll never be loved or cherished because you look like me. You will never belong anywhere. No one cares about you enough to actually be there for you. You will be a burden to everyone else.
From dad to 11-year-old me after we argued about how he missed my birthday, again. But looking back, I laugh because it seemed like he was projecting his own insecurities onto me. LOL. Experience 4. Took my math book up to the teacher's desk with a question. I wasn't grasping it. He slammed my book on his desk and asked me if I was stupid or what. Small town school about 30 years ago. If I ever run into that prick, I have a few things to show and tell him. Experience 5. Locked in the bathroom, naked.
Just look at you. You're fat and ugly. Nobody will ever love you the way I do.
Ex-husband. He was right, I married someone who does love me, just not the way he loved me. Thank God. Experience 6. I have a daughter with an extremely complicated illness. Almost lost her to it twice when she was almost 3 and again 6 months later. In between, this was 15 years ago, I broke down and wept, being so worried about her and also how distant my wife had become from me as well. After I settled down, my wife told me that my crying like that had made me less attractive. My daughter is very stable now and I've been divorced for several years. Experience 7. Once upon a time I was engaged to what I thought was the love of my life. We had instant chemistry, we had fairly similar goals and ambitions in life, and after being together for about a year, I asked her to marry me. She agreed. We were planning the wedding, had a date set, were working on lots of details, and she went on this emotional chat with me about how I could be 100% open and honest with her about everything and her with me, and that she wanted to see the more emotional side of me. We were both 25 years old at the time. Well, it came out that I was working through some PTSD issues I had. Note, I am not a soldier from war. Not war PTSD. I spent 2 years of my life as a volunteer missionary in a few different African countries, and while I absolutely loved and cherished my time there, I came back after seeing some pretty dark things. I had spent time volunteering in several child orphanages, and let me tell you, there's nothing that changes your perspective in life than seeing not just an 8-year-old kid lying there on a bed basically dying of full-blown AIDS, but how about a room of 30 of them? Every week we'd go back, and we were told who had died. Another time we were visiting with this family, and all of a sudden, we heard screaming outside, so we came running outside and this 10-year-old girl was lying in the dirt road in front of the home, hit and run, leg twisted, face a mess, and she is conscious, but blood coming from her ears, nose, and mouth. Emergency services called, and I tried to do everything I could to save her, her mother screaming next to me, and I felt her go limp. I felt her take her last breath. I swear I saw her eyes just go lifeless, and that was it. I mean, I lost it. Anyway, I was watching some videos online and I stumbled across a video of a bunch of people singing and dancing with some young African kids, and I just started crying, almost completely involuntarily. I can't really explain this, but it was so overwhelming emotionally that when you shut your eyes, it didn't matter, you still had some video reel flying over your mind at lightning speed, and you couldn't shut it off, and it wasn't just the memories from my eyes and my ears, it was the smell, the feelings of the memories recorded, the emotions, and it was like every trauma experience over 2 years wrapped into one hyperspeed flashback. I cried for probably 15 minutes straight. Anyway, I talked to her about it and said it was something I was working through with a counselor, which was true. I saw them once a month over it as I had triggered it before. Within 2 weeks our engagement was off and she straightened up and told me that maybe I wasn't manly enough and she just didn't think she could ever look at me the same after she saw me crying there. Oh, and a few days after this happened, I remember we went to Jamba Juice and I ordered a smoothie. For my additives, I requested fiber, which I just had a habit of doing after spending years in Africa, always trying to ensure I had adequate fiber, and I still remember to this day her telling me, "You sound like an old man getting fiber, why not get something more masculine, like protein?" I actually didn't think twice about this at all because I thought, who really cares about that? But I guess this was just her more building evidence in her own mind that I wasn't as manly as she thought I was, and going forward in the marriage was a mistake. With that being said, I am now married for 14 years and guess what I learned? Healthy relationships have strong, open, emotionally connected experiences and discussions. My wife can talk about anything with me, including my past traumas, insecurities, or anything, and she is by my side no matter what. She has told me that my being open with her just makes her feel closer to me. So, the reality is that we men often date a lot of toxic women who aren't actually in the relationship because of deep feelings and emotions and true love, but because we tick all the right surface level boxes for them. At the end of the day, these are not truly healthy relationships, even if it is not obvious. I used to be a bitter guy after this, thinking all my future relationships would end again if I was open, and I semi-hated women for saying they wanted us to be open with them when they were lying, which is actually true for many of them. But I went through what is called emotionally focused therapy with this guy, and he swore up and down to me that while this experience is true of a lot of men, it is only reflective of unhealthy relationships, and that true, healthy relationships a man can actually be open and emotionally, and it will just make you stronger. I think I fought him over that for at least a year, and then my now wife completely proved he was absolutely right. I think he also helped steer me in the right direction of the types of women to avoid. So, let me tell you, there are good women out there who do actually want a man who is open and emotional with them, and it strengthens the relationship. It really does. It's also worth mentioning that my therapist helped me to understand that this is more common in younger women, and many of them kind of realized the error of their younger ways and how they rejected some men. I can't imagine how crazy it is that you had to deal with this with the mother of your child. I am so sorry to hear that. There are good women out there, man. Just think of it like this. You have a daughter. I am sure you are probably doing your best to raise her right. Just know that not all women are destined to become cunts like your ex-wife, and assuredly your daughter doesn't have to be one of them either. Experience 8. I had a theater teacher/director pull me aside after a show that I totally spaced a cue/line. It honestly was a super insignificant line, and the other actor improvised very well, and she straight up told me,
Putting you in this show was the biggest mistake I've ever made. You're a disappointment.
She got fired 2 years later and went to jail for a couple of years for banging my best friend's cousin who was a 15-year-old student. I wonder if putting me in a play with one line was the biggest mistake she's ever made. Experience 9. After what I thought was a good relationship in my 30s with my dad, I was having trouble accommodating his wife's son's wedding and my lifelong friend's wedding in the same week in 2 different states in the Northeast. I'm on the West Coast. I brought up the fact that I was having trouble and my dad tried to fight me, has never in my life been physical before, called me a narcissist, that I'm a piece of crap since I was 17, and that I'm not to talk to him ever again, and if he ever sees me again, he will kill me. I didn't even meet my stepbro until my 30s and spoke to him previously about my difficulty finding flights. Anyway, at the time of the fight, I was still trying to find flights to accommodate both, but my dad telling me those things made up my mind for me. It's a shame, he's 71 and I probably will not talk to him ever again. I'm willing, but he is not. His white knight meter is out of calibration, to say the least. So dumb. Experience 10. My stepmom wrote me a letter when I was in my mid-20s, had 2 kids and was happily married saying I had the morals of an alley cat, I was an unfit parent, and my husband should divorce me. I was literally Cinderella starting from age 5. She even locked me in a cage. Experience 11. Saw a FB post from my dad and stepmom referring to their son as their favorite. My dad and I don't have a relationship, my choosing after he was an ass my whole childhood. It still hurts seeing that. Especially since he is pretty much father of the year to my stepsister and half-brother. Experience 12.
People like you are a statistic. Once you fail once, you'll keep on failing.
Head of school when I had to repeat a year in undergrad, a consequence of being naive and finding myself in a creepy abusive relationship. I refused to shake hands with him after my final performance and told him that no, I wouldn't go to graduation because I'd have to shake his hand when he asked if I was attending. Also quite enjoyed sending copies of my 3 following degree certificates and signing the letter from Dr. Prick. Experience 13. The night before my wedding, my mother drunkenly told me what a horrible, selfish daughter I was. That my wedding was a freaking circus, it was tinted with cafe lights, and she can't believe what an awful selfish person I am. Because I had my wedding in the state I had lived in for 6 years and none of her friends/family decided to travel to it. Oh, and she decided she would throw her own reception the next week, the reason no one decided to come to the actual wedding, which forced me to forego a honeymoon and instead travel to my hometown to attend her second reception. Followed closely for when I tried to hang myself at 11 in my closet and the rack and shelf fell instead and she told me,
You are too fat to hang yourself.
Experience 14. Probably the first time my mom said, "Have a nice life." Took about 10 more drownings before I said enough's enough and cut ties. I'm still kind of bitter but have come to terms with it. She still doesn't understand why I don't want to let her back in. Last I heard she disowned my sister, again, too. Experience 15. After I was assaulted by a classmate as a teenager and obviously acting kind of down and moody at home, 24 hours after it happened, my mom looked at me with disgust on her face because of my attitude and asked,
What's wrong with you?
She also told me I was an embarrassment to the family when I was 12 and entering my goth phase. I have minimal contact with her now as a mid-30s adult. LOL, both my parents are subpar people. Experience 16. Okay, so I've actually never told anyone this, but here goes. When I was younger, my parents were going through a very rough custody battle with me right in the middle of it. I lived with my mom, and my dad was very emotionally and verbally abusive. He would literally interrogate me so he could have something to take my mom to court with. My mom fought like hell to keep me, and I wanted to be with her. My dad, however, thought otherwise. He would take her to court so many times. I've only ever been present once at these court sessions, but this one day, I forget what exactly was going on. We were at home and my mom was venting and she said,
I won't deal with this again, talking about court. I'll just pack your bags for you and you can go live with him.
I remember being very hurt, but I didn't show it. I felt like she didn't care what she would be sending me to, that I wasn't worth all the time she spent trying to keep me away from him. I questioned her love for me, and if that love had faded, I remember it, but we haven't talked about it since. I don't even know if I want to talk about it. Edit. She never actually followed through with what she said. Experience 17.
I'm glad we never had kids. I wouldn't want them to inherit your mental problems.
My ex-wife while I was in treatment for severe depression. Edit. For context. We were already breaking up after 13 years together. I'd always wanted to be a father because my own had passed away when I was very young from cancer. We spoke about having children for years. I had been struggling with depression for a few years before I started treatment, but I was attacked randomly by 4 men on the street and run over by their getaway car, which left me with acute PTSD and anxiety. During this time, my ex-wife cheated on me because I was no longer able to emotionally support her. She said that was in the final days of our divorce. It was only meant to hurt me because she knew how badly I wanted a family. I'm glad to be rid of her. Experience 18. When I was married to my first wife, met younger friends at work and started going out on the weekends. Then one day she left before I got home from work without saying where she was or when she was coming back. I called about midnight to see if I could make sure she was all right, and she answered screaming, "What do you want from me?" I knew at that moment it was over. Experience 19. To this day, they do not realize how hurtful what they said to me was or how it impacted my whole life. It was just luck. When I fixed a stereo system, my dad was trying to fix it. It wasn't luck, but from that point on I felt so stupid. I quit school in the 6th grade and was self-taught on everything, so that made it worse. I went to college and got an associate's. Now, 15 years later, I'm returning to college at 35 to get an unrelated bachelor's degree. I start in September. I am not stupid, and it's not just luck. Experience 20.
All I ever asked for was a son. You're useless.
Edit. This was my dad to me. I'm the youngest kid, all girls. I was his last chance as a boy, so I failed at life the moment I was born. He never forgave me for not being the son he always wanted. That being said, I never forgave him for being an awful person, so I guess we were even ROFL. He died almost 30 years ago. Ta-ta, mother effer.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.